Hey, this is take two of attempting to stream for the very first time. It seems like I have a handful of viewers. This is a little interesting. Okay, so I am not Pixel. For anyone who is confused, I am Beast. And with Pixel's permission, I am doing some streaming on the Ages of Einor channel. And I thought a good way for me to get a little bit of practice and to get a little bit of work done was to go through my sort of player's guide for my Dungeons and Dragons campaign setting, the Beastwilds. So I'm going to be going through that. Um, I'll probably read some sections out loud. I'll probably think out loud quite a bit. And if you are in chat and would like to ask questions, or participate in any way, please. I will be checking chat periodically. But yes, thank you so much for watching this video if you're watching it later, and let's get into it. All right, so I created this Google Doc maybe 2 years ago or so. I've updated it a tiny bit here or there, but I have been quite busy and I have not been as attentive to it as so if I see something that needs to be updated, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do it on stream with all you here. Well, all of nobody. Nobody's watching me. I think I'm just watching. So, introduction. I've made this guide to help you and your characters immerse themselves in the Beastwild. I'm not asking you to read it, memorize it, or make homework for yourself. This is a tool to help you have fun, and I hope that's how you use it. Your feedback will always be listened to and appreciated. The Beastwilds are a collection of serious and silly places where we can all have fun. This campaign setting was made to play a West Marches style open world campaign. And I will talk about that briefly before going on. West Marches is a style of D&D campaign uh, which is sort of like a drop in, drop out kind of a world where you have a great big unexplored map and you have potentially dozens of players who are all sort of participating in uh, this semi-remote, semi-in and out campaign, where there is common knowledge shared between everyone about your sort of starting village or hub, your little town, wherever your characters gather, wherever it's safe, and then there's just fog in every direction out from that. And while you're in town, you pick up rumors, you pick up side quests, etc. Or someone gives you a map and says, "Oh, I think there's this thing. It's like northwest of here. It's X number of days, and it's probably full of treasure because the last people that went there never came back." Uh, and you would play these types of games where, let's say, you have 20 players. Not everyone's playing every session. You would, as the DM, or there might even be several DMs. Let's say there's one DM and 20 players, just to keep things easy for me. The DM would say, I am prepared to run uh, or to follow one of three leads that I've given to everyone. And it might be, the Ruins Wizard's Tower in the south, the Forgotten Fortress in the northeast, and the cave of Forgotten Riches in the west. And of the 20 people who are participating in this game as players, maybe 5 or 6 of them says, I can play this coming week, and we all want to get together and go to the Cave of Untold Riches in the West. And then the DM would run for those 5 people, and then those 5 people would sort of report back on a forum of some kind, or a notice board, or even just an email chain, um, what had happened during the adventure, what they found, and maybe some context clues about the larger world or points of interest even further beyond that place that you ventured out to that might be more dangerous. And so you give the people who played some experience and some fun stuff, hoping that when they come back next, their players are a little bit stronger, a little bit more daring, and they want to go a little bit further out into the world to discover what lies beyond. That is West Marches. That's how the first West Marches games were played, and that is how I played this campaign setting when I first started it a few years ago. Um, they were drop in, drop out games, one shots mostly, and I've done a couple of long term campaigns in this setting, and I'm getting ready for some new stuff involving warfare, which I also want to stream. So, hence why I'm updating. I know that was incredibly long winded side track. So I'm just going to start over this paragraph. The Beastwilds are a collection of serious and silly places where we can all have fun. This campaign setting was made to play a West Marches style open world campaign. The world is persistent and sessions function as episodes, featuring the PCs, player characters, that participating players decide to bring. That's what I was talking about. You know, there might be 20 people who play in this setting at any given time, but not all of them are playing every single episode or session. It's who can show up and who wants to show up. So this means that when you play a game in the Beast Wilds, your character will not only make history, it will experience consequences from previous player actions and choices. And this is something that I'm pretty proud of uh, keeping the continuity for, I guess. Um, because I've I think I've been able to pull this off for a lot of the big player decisions. Um, so let's just check in here, stream, see how this is going. Well, it's playing some ads. So, next paragraph. Is there a story? Yes. This is a living world with stories big and small, but also factions and cultures with motivations and agendas. Um, I've made a couple of different types of like worlds or fantasy settings. I've adapted a lot of fantasy tropes, you know, copy paste that sort of thing in very simple campaigns, one shots, or even just for fun, world building for fun that you never ever use. Um, I approach this a little bit differently than I think I used to when I was world building for this setting. I'm a little bit older. I have new fears. I have new worries and frustrations that I didn't have when I was 16 or 9. Uh, so I've decided because every writer, whether they want to or not, writes about themselves. I've decided to tap into that a lot. This, which is why it's different. Um, I take a much wider lens view of my world. Um, but I also really, really care deeply about what the normal daily life of an average person looks like at any given moment in my life. And because I care so much about how their day looks, like when do they wake up? When do they go to sleep? Where do they go to sleep? How much sleep do they get? How much food do they have? Where does their food come from? Is it a good diet? Is it a bad diet? Are they nice people? Are they mean? Do they live in groups? How are their families organized? What kind of structures do they live in, or do they live outside? Um, I'm an urban planner by trade, and uh, I studied anthropology and material cultures and archaeology as a hobby for a long time, and linguistics. And uh, recently, in the last few years, I've really turned my attention to studying the Eastern Woodland period in American archaeology, which is pre-colonial contact, um, and just learning about how people lived prior to industrialization, prior to international global connectivity, how they existed in isolation, but also how incredibly diverse they were despite that. I use a lot of that in my world and my storytelling. So yeah, this is a living world with stories big and small, factions and cultures with motivations and agendas. As your characters become stronger and interact with the world, they will have opportunities to engage in world defining narratives. Your characters can grasp the threads of fate as early as level 1. That's a pretty poetic sentence. I like that. And it's true. I've run level 1 one shots that changed my world in ways that I was very pleasantly surprised with. Every character has a story to tell and be a part of, and I'm excited to help. And that's true. I am. I'm excited to help you tell good stories. Can I bring a character from my other games to the Beastwilds? Uh, I did not run drop in, drop out games until I started building the Beastwilds. And I sort of had to feel it out as I went, and it was a bit trial and error, learn as I go. And one of the things I didn't realize would happen was that people would be so attached to characters from other games that instead of making a new character and exploring that character in this setting, which I probably a little naive and self-centered of me to think, oh, they're gonna want to like make a bespoke player character just for my setting. Um, no, they have a guy who they've been adventuring with for a few years, and that person, that character's probably been a part of 3 failed campaigns or something like that. You know how it goes. And all they ever want is to just play with their little toy, their little perfect action figure in a game until they get bored of it, and they haven't gotten bored of it. So I had to figure that out. And the answer is yes. However, it's a yes, but the Beast Wilds generously rewards players with boons. Reward. Ooh, typo. Rewards players with boons, abilities, and magical items that are mostly homebrewed for this specific setting. And that is true. I also went into homebrew mega mode with this setting. I've done 3 or 4 different custom warlock packs, which are heavily influenced based on structured as other existing ones: Hexblade, Great Old One, the Fiend. Um, and it, they, I've homebrewed them in a way that they could maybe fix some of the problems that people believe those things have, like limited spell slots for warlocks. That's classic complaint, right? Look up the coffee lock. Uh, it's a dumb way to have like infinite spell slots while abusing short rests or something. Anyway, um, it also helped me define my pantheon a little. I make a lot of custom items for characters because I want you to think your person is special. And if you have a thing that is made just for your character, maybe it gives you an ability, or it lets you use one of your abilities in a new way, a different way that isn't in the rules already. I think that opens up a lot of roleplay opportunities. Um, Plus, I don't know about you, but when I play D&D, I like getting shinies. I, you know, you're like any other moon-eyed collector. You want the little candies, you want the baubles. You want all the gems and the coins and the magical items. You want your character to be rich and powerful. Like, it feels good. Fantasy. So why wouldn't I generously reward people? Uh, so here's the other part of that is please respect your DMs, your other DMs, by creating a Beastwilds version of your character who can live and grow independently of other campaigns. It's not always easy for you to take your character back and forth between different DMs. Uh, some DMs play very differently than other DMs. We all have our own personal style, but we all also learned from different people and their personal styles. Some of us are more storytellers. Some of us are more war gamers, min maxers, role players. Some of us do the voice. Some of us just tell you what happens. All of those are valid as long as you are having fun. And I've noticed that DMs sometimes don't have fun, and unfortunately, that can mean that players don't have fun when you are taking a character back and forth and telling someone that, oh, but my other dad gave me this magical golden axe that's better than anything you had in your game, so I get to use it in this campaign. Please don't do that. You're asking for a fight. Respect your other DMs. Respect all your DMs. We work hard, people. Also, keep in mind that the Beast Wilds has its own sub races and class restrictions, which are detailed in this guide. Somewhat. I think that's probably the thing that I've been the most lax in updating. But I had previously outlawed, forbidden, and banned any clerics or paladins in my setting because there are no gods. I don't have a pantheon yet. Some of that is laziness, but I also believe that restrictions create opportunities for creativity um, within those limitations. You can find creative solutions, and so far I've been very happy with how people have responded to that. And since the last campaign, there is officially a deity which you can pledge uh, or swear your faith to and get magic from. Uh, and I'll announce all that, catch everyone up when I start Warfare streams. Now, talk to your DM to see how you can integrate an existing character into the world or explain how they got here from far away. Um, this is a little plug to players. Please talk to your DMs. They want to help you make your characters. If you have a character made and you're like, I want to bring this character, you have to tell us about them. We need to know what's up. We can't tell a story with no clues. We need some context. Help us to help you have more fun playing Dungeons. When are the games? We schedule sessions for when there's a willing DM. So far, I think there have been four, maybe three or four DMs who have DM'd in the Beast Wilds. Myself, I obviously am number one, but Pixel has also done some of that, as well as our very own Bonus Mom has done some Beast Wild stuff. When are the games? Oh, I already did that. My goodness. We schedule sessions. We only DM and at least one player that wants to play. I have run solo sessions for folks that have been really fun. Um, they demand a lot more from both the player and the DM. So I typically I won't do that for newer players because it usually is just me talking for 2 hours. Um, but I love running solo games for very motivated players who have a great idea, and will say that my favorite players tend to be DMs. It's as simple as that. It really is. If I have the time and I'm willing to run, I'll run a game for you. I just don't always have the time. The Beastwilds is based on a West Marches style of campaign, which means that each session you and your character may meet up with a rotating cast of other Beastwild PCs to explore, socialize, fight, and have fun. I've also done PvP. I need to get better at that. You will slowly get to know each other's characters as you explore the Beastwilds, and they may even recruit you for future sessions. So, I used to be a lot better at this on my channel in the Bonus Mom Tavern Discord. I would post every other week or so 2 or 3 one-shot ideas that I had some work on, and I would do a poll essentially asking people if they could play, which of these would they want to play, and then to vote using emojis. Um, and I would run those games. At peak, I was doing maybe 1 or 2 games, 6 games a month. I've had to back off quite a bit because I've had a couple of jobs since then that have taken up way too much of my time. And my current job is starting to take up less of my time. Why I'm so thrilled to be. So, how are sessions played? Sessions are virtual to accommodate as many people as possible, which, hey, it's the world we live in, right? We typically play using Ages of Einor D&D Discord server, which I think has been since renamed to the Bonus Moms Tavern. This is the olden days, folks. So, on the Bonus Moms Tavern. And we meet in a D&D voice channel, of which we have several. So, there's usually a game going on. Sessions are played as theater of the mind, using minimal audio-visual aids. This keeps prep time shorter between sessions and hopefully allows for more creative encounters. Every session is a little different, and each DM will bring their own style of play to the table. I wrote that because I pretty much run Theater of the Mind. I have found it to be the most flexible, and for me, technically running virtual tabletops, I'm just not there. I don't have the grace or the skill to manage technology on top of trying to narrate a story in a way that I think is to the level of engagement that I want out of my players. But if any of you are familiar with Pixels games or the Ages of Einor live plays, of which I am usually a cast member, he does a fantastic job running Roll20 virtual tabletops for us. He has several years of experience doing that, and he's really put in the work. And I can't say the same. So I play to my strengths, and he does to his, and we're just trying to make it all work. So, welcome to the Beastwilds. It only took me about 30 minutes, 20 minutes to get through this one page. Okay, so first up, Beastwilds lore. Beastwilds is an ever-changing world where player choice has consequences. In order to build a world that lives and breathes and reacts, Beastwilds had to have a past. The topics below range from legend to memory, but will help you and your characters understand the world around them a little better. I promise to do my best to update these as players' choices affect them, and I've done that a little bit, little bit. So before I dig into this, is super dense, nitty gritty. These are essentially notes for me. I don't expect anyone else to read this junk. It's all dense, fluffy nonsense, whatever. And I'm gonna read it, but when I was designing this world, I focused on like, again, top down. So I really sort of focused on the main, like, where were the most people, and I sort of split them across my world. One up here and sort of like one down here. Uh, Sort of like a four corner world type map deal. It's pinned on my Discord channel, and it's also probably a little out of date. Um, and I borrowed a lot from human history. I'm a hobbyist anthropologist, like I said, and studying world cultures is a hobby. So I'm a nut job. And I like to sprinkle in stuff that I find really cool about humans. And while this is a fantasy world with elves and gnomes and goblins, um, and half orcs and all the fun stuff, uh, yeah, humans are still my focus because uh, I find it interesting to see what the boundaries of humanity are uh, in different contexts. You know, um, I think that's how a lot of my stories start because I'm human and I can relate to that. So, very general. I This is a semi-low magic setting. Magic exists. It's kind of shunned upon in some of the more populous parts of the world. Uh, does not mean that it's not literally everywhere. But a distrust of magic. Magic is a less common gift in the Beast Wilds than most campaign settings. So take if you've seen the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I thought was great. Um, there's magic all over the place. People are just casually doing magic. There's even a scene with a sorcerer who is putting on a show while secretly robbing people, and he's doing cantrips to attempt to impress them. That's the show, and no one is impressed. Everyone talks about how their kid cousin or their 5-year old could do the same magic tricks. So to them, magic is just whatever. Um, in the Beast Wilds, magic is astonishing, and not everyone is familiar with it. People live and die their entire lives without seeing magic. Like people who live, without ever having seen snow in person. Doesn't mean that there's not snow all over the place. Just means that it's not a ubiquitous experience. So, less common gift in the Beast Wilds than most campaign settings. Magical bloodlines continue unbroken, but a general distrust of magic among civilized people has led to a suppression of magic as an everyday occurrence. I should just read these before I segue, shouldn't I? The cult of St. Philora encourages the idea of magic as a sickness and believes that the common practice of magic contributed to the collapse of the Norvean Empire. In less civilized areas of the Beast Wilds, druidic magic is regularly practiced and seen as a part of daily life. There are even rumors of secret invitation-only wizarding schools, where the study of magic persists uninterrupted. Parents tell their children bedtime stories of bards who rediscover lost songs, powerful musical incantations, only to be driven mad by their dance with forbidden knowledge. Um, Footnote to this, and then I'll move on to the next one. Uh, Music uh, is a magical force in the Beast Wilds. Um, and people who witness the performance of live music, the performance of live music tends to be a multimedia act in the Beast Wilds. It is not simply sounds from an instrument. It is usually music combined with movement, some sort of coordinated dance or um, repetitive movement of some sort. Uh, Sometimes the musicians are dancing while playing, uh, and that and there may even be voices chanting, words of power type thing, or singing words of power. And in fact, the original supreme magical entities of the world, uh, they sung their magic. So music is the oldest and most potent ancient form of magic in the Beastwild. The decline of the Norvegian Empire. So we heard about this a little bit in the first one. You're probably thinking, okay, cool. This is like, classic Western medieval fantasy Renaissance fair, and it pretty much is. Um, this is sort of the human elvish alliance empire. It's been around for about 300 to 500 years, uh, and uh, while elves tend to live about a cool 1,000 years in my campaign setting, um, they don't always. And the idea of half elves and half orcs in the Beast Wilds is not strict. It's not like you have a mule, and then the mule is infertile, like a mule and a mule doesn't make children. Uh, all bipedal humanoid races, back, ancestries, I think probably is the better term, uh, can procreate. A dwarf and a human can have children. A gnome and a goblin can have children. In fact, the offspring of a goblin and an orc is a hobgoblin in the Beast Wild. So they're half orc, half goblin. But hobgoblins also can have children with each other, and it's all a quantum, right? So if you want your character to be a half orc, that's just sort of a generic common term, common being the language in D&D settings that everyone can speak, the lingua franca. It's the term that the common language uses to refer to people of mixed ancestry, not specifically of one parent who is pureblood human and one parent who is pureblood orc. So, uh, the decline of the Norvegian Empire. A predominantly human and elven nation of noble houses and feudal lords which swore fealty to the Emperor Jorian I, establishing the city of Milan as the Norvegian imperial capital. So, we know a few things. We know that there was a city, probably a legacy city, it's been around for a while, called Milan. Uh, we know that it is now a capital, so it was probably a big city to begin with. It was probably already important. And we know that this is a human and elven nation of noble houses, feudal lords. Um, and it's not just a political thing. Humans and elves in the Beast Wilds have a long, long history of constantly fighting. This is essentially a union of the societies. So half elves are a recent addition to the Beast Wilds, at least in commonly, half elves wandering around as humans and elves only for the past few hundred years have really been at peace and intermarrying. So, the empire was in decline following Ajorian I's death until his granddaughter, Meliadul, chose to enact widespread social reforms. Uh, so we have the guy who was able to found this empire, sort of a Charlemagne type guy, Ajorian I. His granddaughter, who is a half elf, so there's time is wibbly wobbly. It's not like strict like 20, 30 year generations. There's a little because elves are involved. Um, I think about 200, 150 years later, she becomes uh, the ruling monarch of this nation of elves and humans. And so she decides, I'm going to try to fix things by making some policy decisions, and we're going to try collectively to improve things somewhat. So she started a program called Her Majesty's Mercies. Uh, so they were one of the most successful reforms of her rule. Uh, Miliadul embraced the cult of Saint Philora, evangelizing the citizens of Norvège and establishing the cult as the state religion. So this is the first formal organized religion in modern history that we see, and it's a couple hundred years old uh, at this in current time. The Empress Fullerana, oop, I skipped him. Meliadul was publicly initiated into the cult and changed her name to Empress Fullerana. There you go. So we have the granddaughter of the guy that put this all together. She's come into power. She's ascended to the throne of Empress. Uh, Upon her coronation, so prior to her coronation, ooh, oh wow, I just noticed the chat. Hey friends, yes, so bonus mom, I am streaming and I am going through the Beastwilds player guide, reading it line by line and talking way too much about world building. Um, yeah. Thanks for joining. Hi, Dragons Universe. Hey, bonus mom. You are literally my first viewers. I'm proud to call you that. So, thanks for joining. Uh, Lost my track. Oh yeah. So, we got a guy, Ajorian the First. He creates peace. He's a peacemaker. He establishes an empire, a bunch of politically diverse groups of people. He brings them all under a big tent and he says, we're going to be nice to one another. These are elves and humans, okay? A couple hundred years go by. He has a granddaughter. She's half elf mixed ancestry. So her life is extended somewhat compared to a normal human. And she has a long philanthropic history. Think like Princess Diana is probably a good analogy. And when she is coronated, unlike poor late Princess Di, Meliadul ascends to the throne and changes her name based on her faith, which has encouraged all of her uh, philanthropy as a semi-regent, now regent, to the Empress Fullerana, sort of expressing her devoutness for the cult of Saint Fulora. So the Empress Fullerana, excuse me, sadly fell ill and died, leaving her husband, Imperial Consort Regent Ajorian II, as head of state. Ajorian II retreated from public life, pursuing forbidden magical knowledge to extend his life for more than 50 years, hiding in plain sight under the assumed identity of Abbot Dubel of Orval Monastery. In that time, the cult became the administrative government of Norvège and its 5 remaining cities, known collectively as the Norvège Pentarchy. And of course, Pentarchy just means 5 cities. Archy doesn't really mean city. It sort of means like, well, a pentarch. It's like a Catholic thing. It's medieval history. So, uh, there's been a lot of trouble. The Norvegian Empire, for the last couple of generations of human lives, has been collapsing in on itself. Empress died. Nobody was really as good as her. Nobody was as nice to each other. The social contract broke down. There was a lot of famine and plague and some other things going on. Uh, so only 5 cities are really left that are still managed under some form of law and order where people are safe to conduct normal everyday business. Outside of those cities, those areas, not super safe. So let's talk about what the Empress Fullerana did to the Beastwilds, because she left a mark. Yes, the cities are a mixture of humans and elves. Um, and there is, I think, down here, I detail the five cities, and we can talk about those in a bit if you're still around, Trish. If I'm even still talking. So Her Majesty's mercies. These are the social reforms that a good woman and a good monarch was trying to improve the lives of everyone with. So war, famine, pestilence, and plague all contributed to the fall of the Norvegian Empire, and created many orphans and broken families, as unfortunately happened. Her Majesty's mercies were monastic style campuses erected or converted from existing structures that functioned as state sponsored orphanages and homesteads. Well, don't wait to feed Charlie on my account. Um, and I actually hope to reach out to Charlie soon because I have an idea for a new campaign. But I can't talk too much about that. So, um, these are like these mercies, right? Think of them like a stone, like a big stone building, like a big house, or some kind of like barracks or something. A monastery, if you've seen those, where they have sleeping quarters and then they have like a sort of open hall where they can feed people and prepare food. They have a kitchen. They have maybe like a little chapel area where people can come do religious ceremonies, spiritual practices, silent contemplation, maybe even a small library with precious books that have no copies. Um, they're like little mini boarding schools, right? Uh, so what she did was she found places, either like ruins that were suitably around or in places that had been kind of abandoned. People hadn't lived there in a while. They hadn't worked the land. They hadn't, um, the land had gone wild, hence the Beastwilds. And she tried to resettle these places. She would take groups of people and she would say, I need, all of these children. I'm going to gather all of the children from this place and I'm going to put them here to live. And I need people to raise them. And over time, these children are going to grow up. And the idea is that they're going to stay here and essentially raise the next children, becoming self sufficient in a way. And everyone would sort of take turns doing chores, a commune style, doing crops, tending to animals. Everyone is pulling a little bit of their weight to make sure that everyone has enough to get by. And by resettling these places and re-civilizing them and making them productive land, arable land, they are not, if you are a bunch of refugees who aren't producing food, you have to get food from someone else who is producing food. More people who are feeding themselves, just like victory gardens in World War II. You are extending your rations, right? You are reducing the pressure on society. You are becoming self sufficient. And if you make enough food, and food is precious, you can sell it to places that need it, like these five cities. So she was setting up a resilient support system of independent sort of colonies nearby that she could protect, where people would have an environment to grow up and be self sufficient. uh, Many Norwegian cities collapsed from the political turmoil as well as constant plague outbreaks. After Empress Fularana's death, the mercy system was abandoned. The people who lived there left to fend for themselves. Um, yeah, so there are a number of mercies in the Beastwilds. They are, some of them still occupied, but I like them as little places of memory, where maybe your character grew up there and nobody lives there anymore. You ran away 10 years ago and you've come back to find it in ruins. Or maybe you're going to a mercy where something strange is happening because it's out of the way and it's a place where someone can do things out of sight of civilization or the law, as it was. So, the lost secrets of old gold. This is one of the first things I thought of. I'm a huge fan of like magic swords in fantasy. I love that trope. I'm aware that there were weapons made from meteoric iron, which may have had some extraordinary properties, and that these tools and weapons uh, have been around for thousands of years. People were like cold hammering meteoric iron before we had proper steel forges. Uh, so I wanted a magical material that things were made out of, and gold is fun. So I decided to call it old gold, a magical alloy that looks like reddish, brassy gold. It does not rust or decay, is harder than steel, and cannot be smelted or altered by non magical means. The knowledge of how old gold is made has been lost from common memory. Objects made from old gold litter the Beastwilds and are extremely valuable, often magical. They're always magical. Legends of ancient heroes using golden items are common among nearly all cultures of the Beastwild. Uh, I am writing a series of creation myths for different ancestries in the Beastwilds. Um, it's an exercise that I've been occupying myself with, having fun with it. Don't think I'll be done anytime soon or literally ever, but I may publish some of them or put them online for people to travel and trade on the post road. So, we have a big world full of interesting people of different ancestries, living different kinds of lives. How do we meet them if everywhere is dangerous? Well, we have this thing called the post road, um, a guarded road that runs the length of the Beastwilds, connecting all trade between Norvay in the northwest. Is that northwest for you guys? To Jaffrun City in the southeast. I hope that's southeast, bottom right for you. Um, the post road is a patchwork of older trade routes stitched together with newer sections built to facilitate international trade. It is the most common way to travel due to its safety and convenience, but travelers must carry a gilt seal, a stamped gold medallion, proving they've paid the taxes which fund the postman. The postmen operate fortified camps, post garrisons, and patrol the post road as civil engineers, couriers, and armed peacekeepers. However, the immense marshlands of the Crick make unbroken overland trade impossible, meaning all trade between north and south must briefly go by sea. And if I was smart enough to pull up the Beastwilds map, I could actually show you guys. Um, so let's go find it. I'm going to the Bonus Moms Tavern Discord. My internet has historically been quite bad, and I'm super thrilled to literally watch myself stream without any skips. This is pretty cool. All right, Beastwild. See, I told you it was real. Pinned messages. Bam. So, what I was talking about. We can see my cursor. I think we can see my cursor, right? Yeah. All right. So here's the Beast Wilds. Uh, like I said, you sort of have this like caddy corner type thing going on, where in the top left you have the humans and elves mostly. Down here is all like human land that's been abandoned. Um, uh, Over here is also kind of not sort of mysterious. This There's a volcano in here that erupted recently, so all of the skies are black. Osmanaber, this is a port town, mostly half orcs and orcs. Menemen Fair, uh, oops. Let's see, I don't think you guys can see the full screen. Wonder. There we go. So Menemin Fair down here. Nomadic faction, semi-nomadic faction. Copper Cove, another. It's sort of a gnomish industrial mine close to the water. Salty Squirter is a uh, very advanced technologically advanced pirate ship. It was built for the Jaffroon Navy, but was stolen, and it uses steam technology to move like big old paddle wheels, which means it doesn't need wind to go a decent clip across the water. The Tomb of the Copper Commander is a dungeon that has several levels, many levels, and I've run it a few times now, and I think folks have gotten down to level 3. Jaffroon City, should say. Um, I think I've actually repositioned this slightly, and it's kind of spread out a little bit here. But this is the biggest, most populated, most dense place in the Beastwilds, in the middle of nowhere. Well, not nowhere. It's a desert. This is the crick. I think I've also made the crick a little bit bigger to sort of choke up this whole area. So, like I said, the post road goes right. It sort of makes this big old hook. Uh, well, once you hit the crick is this big old marshland that's forests and muck and mud and underbrush. There's no roads, there's no nothing. Uh, and it's constantly moving. It's like big old marsh islands floating on, thin water that all just sort of bump into each other and float around. So it's impossible to navigate unless you're very special. Dusty Springs is kind of a joke cowboy western setting. It's a literal just a crossroads, um, and they are quite impoverished and sort of perpetually on hard times. Um, Garrett's is the first place I ran a one shot any session in the Beast Wild setting, and it has since been abandoned. This was one of the only and this is one of the only places that had permanent year-round residents in this area, which is full of nomadic and semi-nomadic people. Um, yeah. All right. So I'm gonna go back. Constant tangents. Uh, now that I've shown you that, I know you love the crick bonus, Mom. Uh, so, uh, the postmen have historically failed to suppress piracy, which makes trade going over the water kind of a rough deal, right? Uh, they failed to heed the warnings of former postman Mava Bart a decade ago. A postman is gender neutral. It's like a title. It's not a postman, postwoman. You are in the postman. Men is sort of synonymous with human in my setting. I'm trying to lean into that. But the Guilder have begun to invest in anti-piracy actions, also with mixed results. And actually, that's Bonus Mom's fault somewhat. Bonus Mom helped a group of characters steal a pursuit vessel being made for an admiral, and I think they also killed the admiral of the postman. So, if you have to blame piracy on anything, blame it on Bonus Mom. All right. Factions and organizations in the Beastwild. The Bart Company, a loose confederation of privateers originally founded by former postman Mava Bart, now led by Captain Sologutio Soggy Boots Bart. His flagship vessel, the BCS Salty Squirter, that's the Bart Company ship, is a paddle steamer corvette powered by gnomish steam engines with backup sails. And I included a link in this document to some of the inspirations I use. I think it's the SS Danzig. It was built in like the 1830s or something, 1825, something like that. And it's basically like an ironclad, like paddle steam ship. It's this weird like in between where it's like not quite fully armored like an American ironclad during the Civil War, and it's not quite uh, a sail ship like a ferry boat like a you would see in a that like you would see in a like a casino, right? You've seen those floating casinos. They have the big old giant wheels that go round and round on the side, and they have a couple of steam stacks. So it's sort of halfway between those two things, an ironclad and a casino riverboat. It's the height of technology in the Beast Wilds. Steam power is the bleeding edge of current technology in the Beast Wilds, pioneered by the gnomes of Copper Cove. Its maneuverability and independence from needing favorable winds make it excellent at raiding merchant vessels and eluding sail-powered craft, like I mentioned. The BCS Golden Yari, which is the ship that Bonus Mom helped steal, is a pursuit clipper captained by a PC player character, Sabine, the aspiring pirate queen. Members of the Bart Company are of every race and walk of life. All aboard. So, if you think that being a pirate is fun and you have a character idea, the Bart Company will have you in the Beast Wild. And I don't think this is a clipper. I think technically it's a galley. Oops. Someone with more naval finesse might have to correct me. The Cult of St. Philora. Who are these freaky guys? They are a conservative religious cult, which is the acting government of Norvège. So a theocracy. The cult governs 5 remaining human elven city-states known as the Pentarchy, which are all that remains of the declining Norvegian Empire. So we've gone over this, right? The Pentarchy, in vague order of importance and population, are Fulleropolis, Parsifal, Cherna, Leonum, and Agrost. While most citizens of Norvège live in one of the Pentarchy under the scrutiny of the cult, some still live rugged lives in isolated homesteads or among the abandoned ruins of Old Norvège. Old Norvège is just anywhere that isn't the Pentarchy where humans and elves used to live. It's not many places, but it's sort of that peninsula kind of a place I was telling you. So let's talk about those 5 cities. You wanted to know about these, Bonus Mom. Here is a little flavor on each of them. The 5 surviving cities of Norvège, governed in Regent Ajorian II's name by the cult of St. Philora. And let's just go back very briefly. Boom, 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 boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right? And a nice little star pattern. In the middle is Fulleropolis. That's the capital. Parsifal is southernmost and sort of takes up the most land. Leonum is in the north, and it's an old human city. This is kind of like the old human capital. Cherna is sort of like Venice. It's very rocky. There's a lot of coral. This is where elves are from. This is where high elves are from. I have a story about it. My favorite, Agrost, sits on an enormous lake, which is actually the impact of a type of... It's a celestial impact. Let's put it that way. The moon has a hole in it in the Beast Wilds, and whatever that hole was is in that lake. I'll put it that way. So, I should have gotten some water. You know what, folks? Very briefly, I'm going to take, because I've been jawing now for about an hour straight, I'm going to take a very short break, just a couple of minutes, and grab some water. let my voice rest just a touch, and then we're going to talk about these cities. So I hope this works. There's a slight delay, so what I'm going to do is wait for because I'm watching the stream. I want to wait to see it switch. I'll tell you about how long it takes. There, ooh. It worked. Okay. There's maybe like a 10 or 15-second delay. That's not bad. So, the Norvean Pentarchy. These are the 5 cities where humans and elves tend to come from in the Beastwilds. Fulleropolis, the capital city as well as the administrative and religious center of Norway. Originally called Milan, which we heard before, right? Fulleropolis was renamed posthumously for Empress Fullerana. That means after she died, the city of Milan was renamed in honor of her. So she renamed herself upon embracing the cult of St. Philora and its spiritual doctrines. Residents of Fulleropolis tend to work as government administrators and scribes, and are considered strict and pious. Because only devotees, which are called reverends, of the cult are allowed to live and work in Fulleropolis, it is the least populated city in Norway. So this is a little weird, right? To think about a capital city that isn't the biggest, most bustling place. But I want you to think about this kind of like, almost like the Vatican. This is a place of extreme importance where people are making decisions that have wide-ranging consequences about how people live their lives day to day. These are people who are deeply embedded into a religious ideology, a voluntary organization, if you will, and for the most part, they're civil servants. These are people who believe that their job in life is to be organized and to record things and to levy taxes because that's how civilization keeps going. So, in a way, these are the people who have kept the shadow of an empire existing in a completely different way, but people have safe places to be. That's shouldn't go unnoticed or unappreciated. So let's talk about Parsifal. Parsifal is the most populated city, and it's the breadbasket of Norway. So Parsifal is a lot less urban than the other Pentarchy cities. It's spread out over the rolling hills to the south. It butts up against the coast, where there are coastal flats that sort of drop off like cliffs. Think you can think geographically, kind of like the British Isles. Uh, there are wooded mountains to the northwest, and so there's a wide range of different kinds of geographies in this rather spread out area, and there's a river that cuts through it all. Residents of the patchwork villages of Parzival call themselves prayers, pronounced like prayers, and are considered loud and loyal. Most prayers are. Oh my goodness. Hi, Rose. Can you guys hear my cat? She wants to give you some lore, so listen close. So the prayers, most prayers are farmers working fields and orchards, and they have for generations. Many still are tradesmen, masons, carpenters, weavers, who refine the fruits of the land into other goods. So Parsifal is where raw materials become things, right? Land becomes food. Trees trees become uh, you know, uh, become wood, wood becomes other things. You get the idea. Oh, bro, sweetie, what's up? You want to have a conversation? Let's talk about Cherna. Cherna, the wealthiest pentarchy of Norway. Cherna consists of dense, multi-level urban structures built upon a maze of floodplain canals, like Venice. A little rockier than Venice, in my imagination. Chernites, which is what they call themselves, are predominantly merchants and sailors. Uh, oh gosh, am I dropping frames? Um, but also they're predominantly merchants and sailors, but also financiers and insurers, gambling on international trade. That's important. Many Chernites are half elves and elves, although humans still represent uh, the majority. So elves live a long time, and because of that, I imagine that they don't have many children. Uh, and because they don't have many children, and humans probably do have more children than them, they're easily outpaced in the population game. The wealthiest, although Cherna is where high elves are from ancestrally. The wealthiest families of Cherna have fortress like manor homes scattered across the coast, practically accessible only by boat. Chernites are considered ambitious and calculating by other Norvegians. Uh, Leonum, the northernmost surviving Norwegian city. Leonum was known for producing many of Norway's heroic military personalities and has a long standing tradition of martial training and education. So, studying war and tactics and things like that, which is how humans began to pose a threat to elves. They got organized. Uh, Leonosians are considered stoic and polite by their southern cousins and tend towards military careers, often becoming postmen. Others have been known to brave the northern reaches of Norway in search of untouched treasures in the ruins of Old Norway, the last kingdom of Menin. So, uh, one of the last campaigns in the last campaign I ran for the Beastwilds, there was a character, Menander, who is of the line of Menin, which is the last kings of men. This is sort of like um, a group, a consolidated group of tribes of humans who were militarily opposed to elven kind. And they lived up in the woods and things. And the elves lived out on the coast. And as they gradually sort of migrated into the lands, friction began. And the last city, Agrost. This is where the last campaign I ran took place. I called it the Unbreakable Loop. It was a time loop campaign. Thought it was pretty fun. Pixel played it. You should ask him about it. The second most popular. Oh, so did Bonus Mom. No, she didn't. Oh my goodness, I'm making that up. Uh, Pixel did though. Agrost, the second most populated pentarchy. It is considered the last real civilization before the end of the Post Road. Uh, so the Post Road is marked by like sections of road that are sort of capped, or they go through or around or near posts, these fortified camps, these garrisons of uh, semi-military, like a militia of letter carriers, more or less, who deliver the mail. They deliver packages, news, goods. They enable trade. They are caravans. They are guards and civil engineers. They keep the roads maintained so that trade is possible. They fix things after storms. You know, they get rid of trees. They make sure the ditches are dug out and drained. They do the work to keep people connected. Uh, so this is the town on the edge of civilization, more or less. That's the point I was trying to make. So that final post, that sort of last leg of civilized safe road, ends just north of Orval Monastery. So Agrost sits on the western shore of Lake Agrost, which is so deep that nobody has ever seen the bottom and returned alive. And that is actually false now. Except for two people, Sabine and Davin. Two player characters have been to the bottom of the fathomless lock, as I called it. Uh, let's see. Okay, so Honest Mom, I played in Dusty Springs, the Crick, skiing the Post Road and the coast. In that village and ravine, yeah, that was Garrett's, and at the resort, yep, in Osmond Harbor, along the Post Road and maybe the monastery too. You were Delilah, the halfling thief at Orval Monastery. Um, that was just you and Pixel that I ran that for. And Delia should have died, and I think I kind of chickened out and gave you an extra action. uh, okay, so we're still on Agrost. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. So Sabine and Davin, they have been to the bottom of the lake and they have seen what's down there, and they came back. So golden flakes from the lake, known as glitter, like glitter, are used to make vibrant golden dyes, which are considered an extravagant luxury. Agrost has been so devastated by plagues that almost none of its inhabitants have lived there longer than a generation, either having been orphaned by plague or having come as refugees from the south. Other Norveians consider residents of Agrost resourceful and wild, as I imagine you would have to be, uh, because this is not a kind place. Um, and you know what? I think I have a handout on the city of Agrost itself. And if I'm going to get distracted, I might as well do that in a way that helps people. So this is a fun thing you can do in Google Docs. You can highlight anything, any word, and there's this insert link. There's a shortcut, Control K. When you do that, it will automatically search through your Google Drive for things with that match that word or are close to that word. So I've highlighted the word agrost. And you know what? It's probably not the city itself, but it is the player's guide that I made for that campaign. Very brief detour. I apologize. This is a player's guide, a campaign player's guide, a session -1, if you will. And this is how I structured my campaign. So, table of contents, you have the celebration of Silver Sun. This is the occasion, this is the context that your players are in, the setting, which is the city of Agrost. And this sort of breaks down the different areas of the city, zooming in a little bit, and talks about things that just about anyone would know about this city. Um, I will link this. I will not get too distracted. And if you're curious, you can go to the Discord, find this document, a link to this document, and you can check it out. So, the Crick, an endlessly shifting swamp biome the size of a small country. It is dominated by a sapient fungus which grants druidic magic. Ooh. The Crick elves share the Crick with a variety of pixies and fey folk. The Crick is a dangerous wilderness, but Crick elves are known for their hospitality and will return the kindness of adventurers. Crick elves are generally either diurnal, signified by a given name beginning with Mac, that's their sort of family name, or nocturnal. Diurnal means you're awake during the day and you sleep at night. Nocturnal is you're awake at night, sleep during the day. Signified by a given name beginning with O. So this is like, and I'll give you an example, is like Mick Short Pants, or O Culottes. They're all also, each family name is named after a different cut of pant. This is a little bit of a silly place in the Beastwild. So day cricks are called dicks or dick elves, and night cricks are called nicks or knickerbockers. Each family has some of either. So this is not a genetic distinction that these people have. They aren't cursed from birth to be day or night elves, but they fall into it. Each family has some of either, but all cricks mingle at dinner time, where they feast on crick jambalaya before beginning or ending their days. And remember that these are elves. Elves in Dungeons and Dragons and the Beastwilds don't sleep; they meditate. So there is a large period of time, which is sort of the biggest overlap of their schedules. The Dicks and the Knickerbockers is called dinner time, and that's a period of the day where everybody is conscious and exchanging information and salutations and checking in with one another while feeding each other communally. Dusty Springs. An attempt at elven colonization beyond the inscrutable wetlands of the Crick. Thousands of years ago, an elf by the again, I shouldn't go off on tangents. I should just read what I've written. Rumor has it that a Crick elf known as Dusty Johnson founded Dusty Springs thousands of years ago. But after countless generations of misfortune and tragedy, Dusty Springs isn't much more than a handful of elves living among the creaky remnants of this cowpoke crossroads. There's a coach that comes through town every few weeks, but profitable trade and simple comforts have long since abandoned Dusty Springs. A couple of things that have happened in Dusty Springs that I think are fun. They had a museum of elven antiquities, which was little more than a shack with a handful of curios of questionable authenticity. Well, hey, you know, Bonus Mom, I really appreciate you hanging out as long as you did. Thank you so much. You listened to much more than I ever expected any single person to. So have a great night. And the next time I do one of these, I hope I see you again. So, yeah, Dusty Springs. It's a wacky place. It's basically an old country western, Wild West town, but in the Beastwilds. The Gilded Path. So this is sort of the antithesis to the Cult of Saint Philora. These are the two ideologies that are dominant, the hegemonic in the Beastwilds. Teaching you some new words, I'm sure. So the Gilded Path, a zealous economic ideology functioning as a religion. practiced predominantly by Jeffroon dwarves. These are dwarves that live in the desert. So this is a subclass of dwarves, which I will hope to mock up one day. I think it's basically an adapted hill dwarf. The principles of the Gilded Path are the ceaseless accumulation of wealth, specifically gold. Those who practice the philosophy of the Gilded Path are referred to as Gilder, collectively known as the Gilder, or referred to as the Gilder. So, the Cult of St. Flora, the Gilder, you have these two powers, these two factions on opposite ends of the world, which dominate the majority of people's lives. The Gilder believe they are born with debt and spend their lives taking out loans and paying off debts to the Jeffroon City Treasury. The indebted are a lower caste of Gilder society made up of people who have inherited the unpaid debts of their forebears with insurmountable interest, essentially runaway compounding interest that is so high that there is no economic function to pay it down faster than it accumulates. Permanent debt slavery. Where was I? Indebted are treated poorly and make up a subservient caste to the wealthiest families of Gilder. The Gilder's holy city, economic and spiritual headquarters is Jeffroon City. So let's talk about Jeffroon City. A vibrant city-state found deep in the southern deserts. It is the holy city of the Gilded Path. So that's this economic religion. And the near entirety of its inhabitants are Gilder by choice or circumstance. Sometimes debt is enforced upon you if you're unlucky, and you become indebted to the Gilder without a lot of consent. Jeffroon City is actually 3 interconnected monumental structures: the deficit, the surplus, and the pillar of capital, connected to each other by the axis. Jeffroon City has cultivated a number of lush oases which support its abundant population of mostly dwarves, gnomes, and halflings. Jeffroon City is the largest population center in the Beastwilds. I just want to rewind to the description of the city. I'm going to do a little mock-up of that, a visual aid, but the general idea is that the city itself is actually built on a giant balance scale. So we've all seen those things that are like, teeter-totters, and they have little baskets on either end, and when you put coins or something on one side or the other, maybe you have weights on one side, little metal doodads, little tokens, and on the other side you a guy's like plink 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 putting coins on until they balance out. Think of that, except it's monumental. It's the size of 2 cities. So these are twin cities. The surplus and the deficit are the names of the scales. So each of those are city sized, and they are not balanced. Hence, one called the deficit and the other the surplus. I'm guessing if I told you that certain people were only allowed to live in one of those plates, you would probably assume that the surplus is where all the fancy people live, and the deficit is where all the indebted live. And then the pillar of capital is the structure which connects. It's a capital pillar, connects the two, or supports the axis. The axis is a means of transportation. It's also the bar that connects the 2 cities, the 2 segregated cities. I haven't yet run a session in Jeffroon City, but I've thought about it a lot. The Menemen Fair. Uh, this was down here, south of Osmanaber. I have to shrink this just a tiny. There it is. Menemen Fair, all the way at the bottom left of my map, my setting. A sprawling fairground which functions as a gathering place for dedicated athletes. Generations of Menemen have been born, trained, and perfected their bodies among the dappled tents and turf hovels of the Menemen Fair. All races come here to sculpt their bodies with vigorous exercises developed by fitness masters from across the Beastwilds. Groups of Menemen are often seen out in the wider world in their signature wagon caravans, performing as traveling circuses. The money they raise helps support the Menemen in training at the fair and serves as a recruitment tool for new members, often young children who run away to join the circus. So this is sort of like circus folk, like carny type nomadic people. Covered wagons, sort of their whole lives come with them. Um, but instead of always putting on plays or little shows or having rides for folks, everyone's kind of got their own uh, art that they perfect. So some of those might be, it might be strong men, or women, strong people who are trying to lift the heaviest or bend something, or they're showing off, they're trying to be like the best of the best. But some of these men and men are musicians. Some of these men and men are um, artists, dancers, philosophers, poets, magicians, um, acrobats, anything that you can be good at that is a skill. The Menemen have a clan or a series of masters who teach that skill, pass it on. So that's the idea of the Menemen. It was I have a story about how it's founded. Um, Essentially, groups of people, disparate groups would come to a sort of point where the Menemen Fair is sort of generally located, you know, eons ago, and it was a gathering place of significance and importance for them to sort of show off and um, prove to each other that you know they were doing their best. Um, and it probably had some political implications, social implications. Um, and over time, uh, not just humans showed up to witness these incredible feats, but anyone, because they were going out into the world and they were showing off. They were like, I've been out here in the middle of nowhere in the grassy plains lifting weights, and now I'm going to go to a town where people, are all scrawny and weak, and I'm going to show them how strong I am. And you're a circus performer and they give you money, and then some little kid is like, I want to be that when I grow up, and they jump in the wagon, except that kid's a half orc and they have kids and they raise them as men and men. So you see, it's all ancestries welcome. So the postman, an international order of principled militias which guard the post roads from danger while maintaining international trade on behalf of the guilder, which is their primary source of funding. Garrisons of postmen, known as posts, are multi-purpose fortified campsites which provide shelter to travelers as well as mounts for rent. So they have camels, large birds, lizards, horses, stuff like that, for all of your riding needs. Uh, uh, the mounts for rent and safety between stretches of wilderness. Only travelers who carry a gilt seal, proof that they've paid taxes to the guilder, may access these services. Uh, so these are not free complimentary services. They may have been at one point, or it may have been more of a donation suggested kind of a deal. Now, under pressure or reorganization, better word. The modern postmen have this series of gilt seals. These are stamped medallions, um, and it's proof that you paid your taxes. So they know that if you're using the services here, which there may be additional fees, uh, they know that you have funded, at least in part, their survival, their activity. Um, it's also a way to keep outlaws from just wandering in and being like, I'm going to buy all your horses. Post garrisons are generally made up of a postmaster and at least one team. Team is one captain, one clerk, or a scrivener, and 6 carriers. So carriers are they're dudes, they're grunts. They do the labor, they walk, they push things, they're guards, they take shifts. The clerk or scrivener is someone who knows how to read and write, and they are probably doing a lot of the administrative stuff, right? They're probably making sure you have enough rations, logging work, duties, pay. They have a little book, and their nose is in a book, and they're keeping everyone organized. And the captain, of course, is there to make decisions and tell people what to do. The postmaster tells the captains what to do. So if you have multiple teams, the postmaster can manage the captains, and the captains can trickle down orders, right? Larger posts may have multiple postal teams. Although founded with pure intentions by men of noble heart, the current reality is that the postmen are primarily made up of folk conscripted for debts, crimes, or avoiding abject poverty. The children of noble families are appointed as their captains and postmasters, though some few veteran postmen join for the pride of protecting the roads and protecting the people. I like to think of this kind of like the Night's Watch in Game of Thrones. The postman was sort of this, organization founded to protect roads, connect people, ensure that civilization is resilient through networking, right? Through resilient networks. Um, and the empire of Norvège and the cities themselves, the Pentarchy, would not exist if they weren't connected by a vibrant network of well maintained roads. Um, the postmen are responsible for that. But after a while, people kind of get bored. People get maybe soft, comfortable. They don't feel like they need to volunteer for dangerous service, or they're just like, I don't want to be postman. There's other people to do that. Criminals, uh, people who have no other way. Maybe this is an alternative punishment. You understand. They end up getting press ganged into the postman to because it's a better alternative than whatever the other thing was. And so they're there, but they're not happy about it. They're probably not educated, or if they are, they're probably not nice. Stygian tribes. Family clans, which live semi nomadic lives across the expansive eastern steppes. Each tribe traces one or several of its members' lineage directly to a tribal champion, a heroic figure whose legacy begets an independent clan identity. Excuse me. Champions have the ability to award membership into their tribes to anyone they choose. Half orcs and humans make up most of the steppe tribespeople, while some tribes also have small numbers of elves, half elves, and even pureblood orcs. Uh, while the tribes survive independently, they are collectively guided by a circle of druids known as the Congress of Nine Skies. Um, think of this as family groups, and family groups of extended family, and family groups who have accepted other families into them because they contribute and they can protect them. And all these families operate on their own, whatever. They take care of themselves, and they have a large degree of independence. They maybe have an ancestral swath of land that's sort of theirs by right of having been there. new tribes can happen if someone is recognized as a tribal champion. If you do something absolutely nutty and heroic and fantastic by their opinion, you may be given the opportunity to start your own tribe. Essentially, you get your own family name, and you get to be the founding champion, hereditary member of that. So, this part is probably needs the most work. Races, backgrounds, subclasses, the Beastwilds, work in progress. So, desert dwarves, dwarves of Jaffrune City, dress in ostentatious jewel tone robes with conical gold hats that means like a cone, like a dunce cap, wrapped in glittering silken scarves, rings on every finger, and enough gold to fill a mountain. To the Jaffrune, wealth is the only reason for anything, and gold is the most desirable form of wealth. They live in Jaffrune City, surrounded by thriving oases and scorching sands. Jaffrune tend to be merchants, entrepreneurs, and scholars. Tieflings. I treat tieflings a little bit differently in the Beastwilds than in standard D&D. A tiefling is a humanoid, which is the product of an infernal bloodline. In the Beastwilds, a tiefling is a subrace that can be obtained by any character. Okay? So there could be a tiefling is not a race to me. Tiefling is a thing that happens to you, right? Uh, some tieflings are born from humans who dallied with a demon or something. In the Beastwilds, I think of it a little differently. Tiefling is a subrace, can be attained by any character, regardless of their original race, through exposure to infernal corruption. Basically, bad juju. Energy which is not of this plane, of this world, of the wilds, and it's not really supposed to be here, and it changes you if you're exposed to it. A character who is exposed to infernal corruption can gain tiefling racial bonuses and abilities in addition to their original racial abilities, which are not replaced. So, in the Beastwilds, you can become a tiefling, kind of like being a vampire, maybe. It's like you're a human, but you're a human vampire. You're a human tiefling. You're a gnome tiefling. You're, you know, you're a celestial tiefling. Doesn't matter. If that's what you want with your character, talk to me about it. I've done this with a couple of characters, and it's really fun. And I don't care that it makes you a little bit stronger because it gives you extra stuff, because that's fun. Uh, a Tieflings exist but are incredibly rare and would appear to be demons to others. Basically, a normal person would see someone with red skin and horns, and they would be like, "That's a demon. That's not a good thing," even though you might be like a good person. Tell the dungeon master if you'd like to play a tiefling character so they can help with your backstory. Very important. So infernal corruption. This is a weird little mechanic. It's a little loose that I came up with for the Beastwilds on how to make this happen in a way that players can engineer or predict. So they're a little bit of control as to how they change, right? Because I don't want to just tell you what happens. So work with your DM to decide how likely it is your character could gain infernal corruption. That's important. And together you can decide on a system that works for your character. But basically, I broke down the tiefling ancestry, the racial benefits, into three sort of chunks. And so there are I've made it so that I can give you sort of three steps to becoming like full-blown tiefling, to having all of these benefits. Or if you just want to be a little tiefling, a little bit corrupt, a little bit infernal, you can get one of these things. It's still a benefit, it's still a bonus on top of everything, but it might change your physical appearance in a less noticeable way. So here's the 3 divisions, right? 3 points means you're a full tiefling. 1 point means you get one of these things. For each point you get a tier of change. So the 3 things I broke out: resistance to fire damage. That's one of the benefits of being a tiefling. And if you get a point of corruption, that's one of the choices you can make for how you change. And these all stack. But along with that is that your skin color changes. Your skin turns a noticeable shade of red, pink, orange, or purple. Um, this is to reflect the fact that if you're resistant to fire, it's because of a physical change to your body, making fire less harmful to you. So your skin changes color. Pretty powerful to be resistant to fire. Pretty noticeable to have your skin color. So, another thing you can do, you can gain the Thaumaturgy cantrip. And if the player character has 2 points or more of corruption, and they are at least 3rd level, they gain the Hellish Rebuke spell, which they can cast once per day. And at 5th level, they gain the Darkness spell. Spellcasting ability is Charisma, or a class ability. And with that, you gain a physical change. Your eyes become solid. The whites of your eyes, the sclera, become a solid color of black, white, gold, red, or silver. And the final change that you can do when you gain a point of infernal corruption is you get +2 to your charisma, but you grow horns and or a tail. I'm going to make that and or. So I imagine this as being like you grow a tail or horns or something. That's like your skin changing color. That's pretty big, but horns or a tail aren't going to protect you from fire. So skin change. That's what I put on that. But if you have horns, +2 to your charisma. It's noticeable. It's a way that you impact conversations. You intimidate folks. You could persuade them through your majestic presence. And I've done a number of subclasses. Not all of them are in here. One of them is the Praetor, a barbarian subclass. Why don't I just hop on over to this? So there's no art, there's no fancy stuff. This was a custom class I made for a friend and player in the games. A Praetor channels their vitality into destructive potential and is empowered by the damage they cause. You are among the finest killers in the Beastwilds, a savage hunter whose prey is given only a single option: kill me or die. Your aspect of hunger is not your own, but you must feed it nonetheless. So this is a barbarian subclass. It is extremely powerful, overpowered, deliberately broken, and combos pretty well. Tough as nails. At 3rd level, you gain proficiency with heavy armor, which is fun for a barbarian. Nice option. While not wearing any armor and while gaining the benefits of unarmored defense, you have damage reduction of 1, which means that every single time you take damage, if you're raging, for instance, and you're taking half damage from non-magical damage, you would have it and then subtract 1. So if you have damage reduction, it's almost like you're reducing 2 points of damage. So if you're naked and fighting, every time you get hit, you get hurt just a little bit less. You're just tough. Or if you want to have heavy armor, you could up your AC to a point where you just don't get hit that often. So you get something else at 3rd level: the aspect of hunger. At 3rd level, your rage consumes you. While raging, you lose HP equal to your proficiency bonus at the beginning of each of your turns. This is important because if you're raging, this will help you take damage if you didn't take damage or you didn't make an attack. This will qualify you while raging to continue your rage. So that's a fun little trick. And you take that damage as soon as you enter a rage. as a bonus action while raging. So you use your bonus action to rage, right? And then your next turn, you're already raging. You're still raging. You don't have any bonus actions. Now you do. You have a follow up bonus action. After you rage, you can use your bonus action to deal. And after dealing damage to a creature, you may expend a hit die to recover hit points. So you take at third level, your proficiency bonus I think is +2. You take 2 hit point damage, little chip of damage at the top of your rage, right? You just hit something because you're raging. You can use a bonus action to burn one of those 3 hit die that you have to recover up to, I think it's a D12 for a barbarian. So you took 2 damage, you hit someone, and because of your bloodlust, you can just recover that from zeal. I like this because it gives you a way to use hit die. Hit die, I think, are super underutilized, and most people only use them during rests. And some DMs don't allow your party to rest, so most people never use them. Untapped resources are my favorite puzzle to solve. You lose all temporary hit points upon entering a rage, and you cannot gain temporary hit points while raging. That keeps you from negating that little bit of damage you get with some form of temporary hit point. I think that's dumb. Risk reward, baby. So, 6th level, Consume the Fallen. At 6th level, you are empowered by your enemy's defeat. Each time you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, you may regain 1 expended hit die. So, let's read the rest of it first. Each time during combat that you regain a hit die, make a free weapon attack against a single creature of your choice within melee range. Let's break this down. So, 3rd level, you choose your path of your barbarian path. You choose Path of the Praetor. You get Tough as Nails, you get Aspect of Hunter. You've gone on some adventures, you level up. You're 6th level now. What happens when you get into a fight? You take off all of your armor. You now get damage reduction of 1. You have your unarmored defense. You're feeling frisky. You get into a fight. You go into a rage. Take a tiny bit of damage. And then you hit someone. You can't use your bonus action, but you take a chunk out of them. They're still up. They're still healthy. Next turn, you take a couple more chunks out of that person. You took a little bit more damage, and someone poked you, but you reduced it by a little bit, so you still haven't taken too much. You use your bonus action to expend a hit die to heal all the damage you've lost. You're back to full health now. You end your turn. Turn 3 starts. You go whack. You knock down your enemy. They go to 0 hit points. You just regain that hit die that you spent on that second turn to heal yourself. And because you gained a hit die, you get to make a free melee attack against the person who was flanking you on the side. So now you take a chunk out of them on top of it. Now you get to level 10. At Savage Hunter. At 10th level, you've learned to abandon all caution to land savage hits. Once per turn, when making a weapon attack roll, you may choose to expend a single hit die, 1d12, and add the number rolled to the attack roll to hit and to the weapon damage if the attack is successful. When landing a critical hit, you may choose to expend a number of hit die equal to your proficiency bonus, which at level 10 I think would be 5, as additional weapon damage. But you will also receive the same amount of damage added this way. Let's talk about that. So, once per turn when making a weapon attack roll, all right, so you're making an attack. You're raging, you're making an attack. You may choose to expend a single hit die and add the number rolled to any attack roll to hit and to weapon damage is successful. Let's say you are doing a reckless attack. You give yourself advantage to hit. You add that d12 on top of that. You're going to hit. And let's say you rolled a 7 on that d12 plus 7 to hit on top of whatever you're doing. That's plus 7 damage too. If you land a critical hit, let's say you're level 10, you have 10 hit die. Let's say you just 2 of those. So 2d12. You're going to roll 2d12. Let's say you roll 15 with 2d12. And you add 12 damage on top of your crit, and then you take 12 damage. But if you do enough damage with that crit to knock someone to 0, guess what happens? Consume the Fallen. You get a hit die back, and you get another weapon attack. And after dealing damage to a creature, if you're raging and you didn't use your bonus action yet this round, once you get that hit die back, you can use a bonus action to burn it and heal yourself a D12. So every time you take a chunk out of yourself to deal more damage, you're getting a chance to put it back by taking out bad guys or defeating creatures. Apex Praetor, level 14. You become an unstoppable force driven by bloodshed. Gary. Whenever you would gain hit points or temporary hit points from a source other than expending hit die, you may choose to regain a hit die instead. You'll regain all hit die on a long rest instead of the usual half. So you regain a hit die if you get temporary hit points, right? If someone heals you, or someone else is supporting you, or gives you temporary hit points, you regain a hit die. It doesn't sound like that great of a deal, right? But every time you regain a hit die, you get to make a free weapon attack. Or no. Yeah. Each time you gain a hit die, you make a free weapon attack. So imagine the combo is possible. You're a crazy barbarian, you're in combat with like 4 people, and 4 creatures, and you have someone who is giving you little bits of healing, but you're raging. So you can't heal. Or you can heal, but you can't gain temporary hit points. And instead, let's say they use healing word, they're only going to heal you like 3 or 4 hit points. Your hit die is worth more than that. So instead of taking the 4, you gamble and you say, I want the hit die. You gained a hit die, you make a weapon attack. Well, you just made a weapon attack, you dealt damage. So you can expend a hit die. You can heal yourself. And you can get a hit die back if you knock them to 0. And you can make another weapon attack. You can basically pump, a high level party could pump a single Praetor to knock out an entire group. Anyway, I jawed about that long enough. There's some roleplay stuff that I built into this. It's sort of a semi-warlock type deal. Hunger consumes you. You've been touched by the black monolith in some way. That's where some scary, high-powered demigods live. It drives you to feed. As you consume and nourish yourself, so too does the power inside the black monolith grow. Will you grow strong enough to break free from the unnatural pact you've made? Will your hunger ever be satisfied? Defeat your enemies and find out. The Praetor are elite warriors under the power of the Black Monolith, found in the Beastwilds Underdark. They fight recklessly and viciously, without regard for their own safety. They are instead sustained through harming their enemies and gain significant bonuses when defeating powerful creatures. As a Praetor, you must feed regularly in order to sustain the magical connection you have to the Black Monolith. Feeding occurs when a Praetor strikes a killing blow on any creature. The more you feed, the stronger you get. So, as a roleplay thing, anytime a Praetor defeats a creature, I have that as a type of ritual where the essence of the dying creature is nourishing this malevolent force that gives you power. Here's a background that I invented, adapted rather. Tribal champion, because I've had people who wanted to make characters who were part of tribal champion lineages. You're a child of promise. You were sired by champions of the Stygian tribes. Any child with a champion parent is considered part of the champion's family and is a first class member of their tribe. If a hereditary line of champions dies out, so too does its tribe. So there's a little bit of responsibility there. Your responsibility is to procreate, have many mighty children, and perform great deeds so that you might one day start a tribe of your own. That's the most important thing to those people. And this is it's very similar to an Outlander background with a few little quirks. You get a trophy. Oh yeah, tribal artifact. This is the big deal. So if you're from a tribal champion family in the Beastwilds, you as heroes, your whole family basically collect mighty objects of power. That's something that heroes do, and you kind of keep them in the family. So as family members grow up, you're kind of like given or doled out, depending on how important you are in the champion family. Um, uh, you're given a magical tool or something to make you stand out because you have a legacy to uphold. And here's a few that I've made or given out. Fist of the Southern Sky, that was a hammer made of old gold. Giant's Bane arrow, that was a fun one. It's basically an arrow that is super, super strong when fighting a giant. Flux Shimmering Scale. I think this used to be called the Glittering Carapace. It's basically armor made out of coins that have been stitched together. So, like a chainmail, but it's a coin mail. And the Amber Diadem, which was a incredibly powerful thing that uh, someone ran off with and was the setup to my first ever session in the Beast Wild. This is all standard stuff. I'm not going to look at that with you. I've been talking for about 2 hours or so. That's the end of what I've done. It's not everything that I've done. It's a good start, and it's almost 10 pages of stuff. And it took me 2 hours to read out loud with a lot of diversions. So I literally don't expect anyone to read this. But I've read it a few times, and it helps keep my mind focused. And this is how I have fun playing Dungeons and Dragons, by creating interesting deep world that I can tap into to tell fun stories. And with that, I'm gonna end my first stream, folks. I will say that I'm gonna try to do more of this. I'm gonna announce it maybe in the future. So hopefully there will be a little more planning involved and some setup. But I hope to see more of you, and let's see where this goes. If you really liked this, let me know. Come to the Bonus Moms Tavern Discord, which you can find on a link somewhere in this channel, this Twitch channel, Ages of Einor. I have been Beast. I am not your regular host, but I hope to be slightly more common of a host. And I want to play Dungeons and Dragons with you. Okay, folks. Signing off for now. I hope you enjoyed this. See you soon.